All right, so in my day job, I work with Global Positioning System, and GPS time says it is 14:15 or 2:15, so we're gonna get started. How's everybody doing? Well, awesome. My name's Kevin Ikenberry. Welcome to Emotional Resonance. Now, you've probably noticed on the calendar that I have 45 minutes. There's not going to be a whole lot of stuff that we're actually going to get into with emotional resonance. I'm not going to talk about your voice. I'm not going to talk about your prose. I'm not going to talk about your plot. I'm going to give you some building blocks of how you can look at preparing your story and preparing the characters that you write for your stories to have a point where you get so much emotional resonance from your characters that, like me, I made my dad not talk to me for a week. I can say I should update this because it's now happened twice, which is pretty fun. But so why me? Well, I'm a retired Army officer, and I didn't start writing until I was in my 30s. One day at work, I was a battalion executive officer, second in command, and I had this character start talking to me. I thought, cool. So I started writing notes in a notebook. By the way, I forgot to start with, hi, my name's Kevin. I have a notebook problem. But I pulled out my notebook, started writing some notes, got about 2 pages in and realized this is a book. How in the hell do I write a book? Well, I was an English minor in college, and among other things, I'd been told I was a good writer in high school and then again in college, but I had done nothing with it. So I started this process of writing a book. And this happened in 2013, and about that time I had some foot surgery, so I was going to literally be on my butt for about 6 weeks. And I reached out for the very first time to mentors. And I think that's one thing I would throw out to you right now. If you don't have a mentor, you're going to find one this week. Reach out to mentors, because I learned so much from the mentors that I was going through that when I wrote that book, it became my debut novel, Sleeper Protocol. Reviewed by Publishers Weekly, was a finalist for the Colorado Book Award, #1 in Amazon categories and all that fun stuff. It was really pretty awesome. More importantly, though, it's put me 15 published novels since 2016. I'm one of the core authors in the Four Horsemen universe, which is a military sci-fi universe from Chris Kennedy Publishing. I have my first traditionally published book coming from Beyond Books in August of next year, which is an alternate history novel written with Eric Flint. And all of that got started because I had a conversation with a mentor. So do that before you leave this week. So, like I said, we're going to talk about the emotional plan of attack. And you'll notice from my quote from Publishers Weekly, it was emotionally powerful debut. That wasn't by accident. So everything that I did to write this book, I'm about to break down for you in 45 minutes or less. Everybody ready? All right. First things first, it's science. Anybody ever hear of the mirror effect? It's mostly a screenwriting thing. But the mirror effect means if I were the screenwriter, right, and you were my movie audience, the big screen is here where I'm standing. I'm behind the screen, and I'm watching you as the movie plays. And if it gets to the joke, I want to see you laugh. If it gets to the sad part, I want to see you crying your eyes out. That's what I want to see. Screenplays are constructed like that. They are built on the idea of being able to look through the screen, seeing the audience, and getting their emotional feedback. Can you do this as a writer? Absolutely. It's the same thing. Think about who your reader is. Our readers are going to do a couple of things with our books, right? Hopefully they're going to enjoy them. Hopefully they're going to review them. But most importantly, they want to see themselves in your favorite characters. Think about your favorite characters from literature, from movies. By the way, we will talk a lot about movies because your book is a movie in someone else's head. So we're actually going to use some movie examples, because as we talk about some of the things that we're going to break down, I could say, well, in Sleeper Protocol, I did this, but I'm guessing that about 98% of you in the audience have not even heard of that book before today. But you've heard of Star Wars. You've heard of Harry Potter. So we're going to use some of those examples as we go through. How do we do this? How do we construct our characters and our storyline to capture as much emotional resonance as possible? I'm glad you asked. There's five key questions. I'm going to show you the next slide. Everybody always freaks out and tries to write them all down. I'm going to break them down one at a time. Okay, so you don't have to freak out and write all 5 questions in 25 seconds, okay? Because then you would have my dad's handwriting of, okay, that's not what we're going to do. Okay, emotional plan of attack. This comes down to 3 things: character development, some tricks and tropes of the trade, which we're going to talk about later on, and then some story structure. Now, I will confess to another thing besides my notebook problem. I am a story structure nerd. I teach classes in this all the time. And one of the things that I teach people with story structure is, whether it's Save the Cat or the hero's journey or 7-point story structure, the same beats are there. The same beats are there. In this particular case, we're going to talk about archetypal story structure, which I'll break down for you when we get there. Okay. This week, somebody's going to ask you the question of, what are you writing? This is probably going to be the first few words out of your mouth, right? Well, it's a story about what? What's the next word after about? Who's it about? Your character, right? It's a story about a girl. It's a story about a boy. It's a story about a pair of love-struck lovers at a casino in Las Vegas. That's too close to the point, okay? But this is how we describe our stories, right? If I describe for you Sleeper Protocol, the log line is, this is a story of a soldier from our time who wakes up 300 years in the future without his identity. He's given 1 year to wander the world and figure that out, but he's also given that year to figure out if that future is worth saving. Now you have an idea of what that story is, and it all starts here. And I told you all about the character and the major plot of the book, all right? 5 critical questions. And we're going to spend some time here. So number 1, who is your protagonist? Okay, who's your main character? What are they trying to accomplish? Who is with them on their journey? Who is trying to stop them? And what happens if your protagonist fails? This is an important question we're going to get to later on, because question number 5 is the longest, most difficult answer I'm going to give you. I'm totally joking. It's 2 words. All right? Let's break this down. All right, so who is our protagonist? Okay, so most of the time we see this done in a couple of different ways. The first one is the sympathetic character. We want to have a character that we identify with from a sympathetic perspective. And using my Star Wars example, when we first meet Luke Skywalker in that first movie from 1977, John, what's Luke Skywalker when we first meet him? Moisture farmer stuck on a back world. And more than that, he's a whiny farm boy. I want to take the power converters to Tashi Station, right? We sympathize with him because guess what? Everybody in this room has been a whiny teenager at some point or another. Okay, I have a 13-year-old about to turn 14. I am knee-deep in this, okay? But that sympathy is something we want to see. We want to be able to identify with our characters immediately. I'm sorry to you guys, I'm going to be walking back and forth, so I can't stand still. Those things are the devil. All right, so we want that sympathy. We want to have our audience immediately identify with this. And there's some tricks and tropes that we're going to talk about later that directly reflect here. Someone who has suffered undeserved misfortune. All right, what do we mean by undeserved misfortune? Say you're a Vietnam vet and you're hitchhiking across the country to visit your friends, and they're all dying from cancer from Agent Orange exposure. And you come to a small town across this bridge, and all you want to do is cross the bridge and go to the diner and get a bite to eat. I've just given you First Blood, okay? The first John Rambo movie, but was also a book, which is much better than the movie, as is usually the case. That's undeserved misfortune. Some of you in the room are old enough to remember the old Billy Jack movies from the 1970s. Billy Jack goes into town, wants to get a hot dog, gets in a fight with the biker gang, and that's the rest of the movie, right? He's just a nice guy going about his way, and then something happens, so now he has to deal with that undeserved misfortune. So something bad happens, and we have to see them come through it. Someone who is quirky or fun. Now, it's important to point out here, I have Wonder Woman, right? Which one of these does she fit? She's a sympathetic character. At the beginning of the movie, we meet her, she's a little girl, right? And all she wants to do is prove to mom that she's a big kid and can do this. Guess what? You've all been there too, all right? Deadpool's here because he's quirky and fun, but he's also got that undeserved misfortune piece, right? He's kind of a bad guy. When we meet him, he's kind of a mercenary, but he falls in love. And then he has cancer. And then he tries to get it solved. He gets disfigured, undeserved misfortune. The quirky and fun, this is always kind of one to delve a little bit into. Anybody seen the movie Liar, Liar with Jim Carrey? The lawyer who is no longer allowed to lie. Think about that. That's the butt of the joke. The lawyer who is no longer allowed to lie. That whole movie is based off of this. It's quirky and fun because we're having fun at the lawyer's expense, right? We're having them, now you've all of a sudden got a guy who's struggling to tell the truth at all times. It's kind of fun. Now, 2 important things. Number 1, your protagonist is the center of the story, okay? Which means that everything that they do, everything that they're important, everything that's around them is important, okay? If you start writing a story and you've got a main character, but you like writing this side character more, and you start gravitating your voice to this side character, what am I doing? I'm writing the wrong character, okay? I'm now writing the second banana, not you personally, but you get the idea, okay? You've got the wrong hero. Okay, so you've got to make sure that they are the center of the story. Also, they stand out from the other characters around them. What does this mean? Are they special? Maybe. Anybody ever hear the trope called the chosen one? And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, okay? Because it's a major one of how we do this, because we as the audience can figure out that they're the chosen one, right? But now we have to watch them figure it out. We understand that they're going to stand out from the other characters, but in the course of them learning about them being the chosen one, we watch them fail, right? We watch them try something and fail, and that becomes very important to us because it goes right back to these three. We're sympathizing with them. Has anybody ever done everything in their life correct the first time? Stop lying, fauna stock. I knew you'd do that. Okay? This is the danger of having your friends in the audience. All right, but you get the idea. Okay, everybody tracking along with what we're talking about with our hero? Okay, let's talk about their goals. Okay, whoops. All right, what are they trying to do? Here's the thing I will tell you about this slide. If you can do this, if you can give your character goals, especially multiple levels of goals, you will write an emotionally resonant story because you're now bringing depth to the character. All right? So the first thing is we talk about what a professional goal is. Now, your professional goal is the overall arching big goal in the story, right? Let's go back to my Star Wars example. You guys know what the big goal in that one is? Destroy the Death Star. Does Luke Skywalker at the beginning of the movie know what the Death Star is? Nope. How do we know as the audience what the Death Star is? It's in the crawl, right? The text going off into the space. George Lucas ham-fisted that one, guys. Here's the professional goal. We're going to destroy the Death Star. I remember 6-year-old me is like, what, the Death Star? That sounds cool. I wonder what that's going to be. Talk about building emotional involvement, right? I wanted to see that. So the professional goal, what your hero is trying to do, the overarching goal of the story. Their personal goal is a goal that they share amongst friends. So think about this today as you're going around working on stuff here at 20Books. Your professional goal is to go to 20Books, have a good time, do a lot of networking, right? Later on, you're going to get a group of people together, hopefully, and go out and grab a bite to eat. The personal goal is the goal among friends. This is where we've got a table full of folks, and somebody says, what do you want to do with your writing career? Well, I want to do this. I've now shared my goal with a group of friends. Okay? Make sense? A lot of cases, the personal goal is something that the main character uses to pull other people into the caper, right? Or pull them into the mission. Think about Luke Skywalker going after Han and Chewie, right, as the pilots. They get on board the Death Star. Luke's the one that has the idea that takes them down to the detention block. And how does he get Han Solo to do that? She's rich. Okay? Very simply done. So that's how you bring the rest of the crew into the story. Now, the private goal is going to be the one that you have with a mentor character, or maybe your best friend that's here, the best friend you're going to make over the next couple of days. And you're going to say, hey, you know what? By June 1st next year, I'm going to finish that book. That's a goal between one person and a mentor, one person and a close friend, or it might be the goal you tell yourself at the mirror tomorrow morning. 6 months from now, I'm going to write my first book, okay? Everybody tracking along how these work. Professional goal, largest goal in the story. Personal goal, how I recruit friends or what I share amongst a small group of friends. And then the private goal shared with the mentor character. This is important, okay? Goals provide motivation. All of us have goals, right? Everybody in this room except Fauna Stock has goals, right? Because I knew you'd raise your hand. Okay, we all have goals. That gives us purpose, right? You ever read a book where the character doesn't seem to know what they're doing? Or doesn't have a goal? Marvel Comics tried this back in the 90s with a comic book superhero character. The guy's name the title of it was Major Bummer. And this is a superhero who literally wants to sit on his couch and eat potato chips. Do you think that series lasted a long time? No. We want to see things happen. We want to see people go after their goals. So you have to have this because growth is going to be phenomenally important. All right? How many of you have ever walked out of a movie theater? Raise your hands, be honest. How many of you have ever taken a book, put it down, or thrown it across the room? Okay. 90% of those cases of the two things I just said are right here. Going back to Luke Skywalker, if Luke Skywalker is a whiny farm boy at the beginning of the movie, when he gets to the end down there and he climbs into that X-Wing fighter and he's still a whiny farm boy, we don't buy it. We'd have all walked out of the theater, even 6-year-old me. We have to see that growth. We have to see that transformation over time. So let's talk about Luke. So again, here's his 3 goals. Destroy the Death Star. We know that already came from the crawl. We already knew what it was. Rescue Princess Leia is the personal goal. And then become a Jedi like my father. Now, if you're a Star Wars nut, you're probably thinking, wait a minute, Kevin. Yeah, he says this, but does Luke become a Jedi like his father at the end of the first movie? Nope. But, Luke has learned magic in a sense. And being a magician is part of what we'll talk about with archetypal story structure near the end. So it all fits together. So Luke is learning something new and applying that magic at the end. He's not a Jedi, even though George Lucas didn't know if he was going to get the money to do another movie after the first one, okay? But that was the goal, become a Jedi like my father. All right. Oh, what's going on here? There we go. Question number 3, who is with your protagonist? So we're going to continue my Star Wars theme, right? Your secondary characters can fill many roles in different archetypes as well. Now, the challenge is, going back to the protagonist, we have to make the protagonist the center of the story, right? So I can't have Han Solo's story be just as compelling. So I make Han Solo a criminal who owes money to the criminal underworld boss. We understand that Luke is supposed to be the hero, right? And he's, the fair-haired child, and he's going to do all the great and heroic things, and we expect Han to be a scumbag the rest of the movie, right? But he's not, because he grows too. When we first meet Leia is clearly the victim or the stakes character or the dynamic character in Star Wars, which we're not going to talk about characterization more than that. But when we first meet her, she is fully the victim. Who's the one that gets them out of the detention center? Leia. She blasts the grate. They go down. Granted, they end up in the garbage heap, okay? But she's a firebrand, and we see that in her, and it transforms her character. So not only do we see her as the victim, but now, as the course of the movie's gone on, she's grown as well. So when we see her back on Yavin 4 during the attack, and she's at the command board with all the generals, right? We believe she has a spot at that table. So that growth is very important, okay? You have to treat your side characters carefully. Even if you have a character that does only one thing to advance things forward, that's what you've got to do. R2-D2 in Star Wars, he's what we call a deflector. Luke Skywalker is perfectly fine in his unhappy life as a moisture farmer. And he finds this little robot, and the little robot runs away the minute he takes the resistance bolt off of him. And he goes to try to find Obi-Wan Kenobi, and everything changes for Luke Skywalker from that point. His nice, quiet life has been deflected by R2-D2. Every one of your characters plays a role, but you must treat them carefully and make them have goals too. Because if they have goals, all of that's going to wrap back together and tie your story better from a character perspective. All right, everybody caught up with your notes? Let's talk the bad guy, all right? Maybe. Oh, there we go. Who's trying to stop them? A powerful and committed villain, okay? Powerful and committed. Powerful meaning they have the capability of affecting the protagonist directly, and committed means that they are dead set in their ways that they are going to rule the world or whatever else. They're going to use everything at their power to accomplish their goals. Now, skip block 2 for a second. I'll come back to it, okay? It can either be the true antagonist or a representation of them, all right? Does my main character have to meet my antagonist in a movie or in a story? What if my antagonist is completely off screen or off the page, like nature? Am I really meeting them? No. Star Wars, which we'll talk about in a second, Luke Skywalker never meets the antagonist of the movie. The antagonist doesn't even know who Luke Skywalker is. Okay? It's effectively done. Now, skip this one. We're going to go back to 2. All right. The reason why I skipped this is because this always confuses my students. This is not the antagonist walking along. If you're my protagonist, I'm not walking along in front of you and dropping obstacles in front of you. Now you have to climb this one. Now you have to climb this one. Now you have to climb this one. That's not the way it works. Most of this is done via world building. I'm going to go back to my Star Wars example, but the reason why I teach Star Wars as far as this is concerned is, 1, Star Wars, by the way, if you didn't know, perfectly replicates the hero's journey. I'll share a secret with you. George Lucas brought in Joseph Campbell to consult on the script, so it follows the hero's journey perfectly. But if Luke Skywalker starts out here as the whiny farm boy, and we know we've got to get him down there, These obstacles that take place in front of Luke are very simple. When Luke first makes the decision to go with Obi-Wan and go to Mos Eisley, right? We have the shot of them looking over the city. What happens when they get into the city? They're stopped by stormtroopers, right? These aren't the droids you're looking for. They go to the bar. Luke immediately almost gets in a fight. Obi-Wan has to come in and save him by cutting a guy's arm off, right? Luke is really quickly learning this is a different world. Because Luke Skywalker's a whiny farm boy, right? But what did he want to do? Do you remember? I want to be a pilot. I want to go to the academy with my friends. Who runs the academy? The Empire. Luke's clueless. He has no clue what's going on. But because we can take him through these obstacles, now we're watching him learn, hey, these stormtroopers are bad. Hey, this galaxy is not a cool place. Now we get on this cool, fast ship that's kind of grungy and whatnot, but then we're going to go to Alderaan, and it's not there. See where I'm going with this? Obstacles. Now we're on the Death Star, but we've got a tractor beam, so we can't get off. Now they go rescue Princess Leia. They're trapped in the garbage disposal. They have to get out. You see, over and over again, I'm creating obstacles for the antagonist, or for the protagonist, just by the antagonist world building, just by what's going on with what the antagonist is doing. Now, can I have an antagonist who goes and puts things physically in front of them? Yes. Okay, I absolutely can. That's why I have Voldemort up here. But the idea is, this is more of a world-building function because you give the opportunity for your protagonist to see new things, to experience the world, and become changed and grow. All right? So here's the bad guy of Star Wars. Normally when I ask this question, at least one person goes, it's Vader. Nope. Darth Vader's a goon in this movie. That's all his role is. He's a goon. He's a wise guy. Okay? He is Grand Moff Tarkin's hired hand. And if you think about Tarkin, right, we went through Luke's goals. Tarkin actually says all three of these. He wants to use the full power of the battle station, right? He's going to use that to rule the galaxy. He talks to Vader, just the two of them, and says, not only destroy the rebellion, but destroy all traces of the Jedi. Goal among friends, private goal, both together in that moment. So his goals are what we call diametrically opposed, okay? Meaning Luke Skywalker has the goals of saving the world. Tarkin wants to destroy everything. Diametrically opposed. Everybody tracking what I mean by diametrically opposed? All right. Now, you might want to write this one down. When your protagonist and antagonist have goals, you have a story, okay? If your antagonist does not have goals, what do you think happens to the overall story? I'll tell you, it dies in Act 2. I have been guilty of this. Okay, Sleeper Protocol for the longest time had the wrong antagonist. The second I changed the antagonist, I finished the book and, grand things happened, okay? But once I determined that antagonist and their goals, I knew I had that story. When I make those goals between the protagonist and the antagonist diametrically opposed to one another, I have conflict, all right? Conflict makes a story a great story. And great stories are emotionally resonant. If you take nothing else from my class today, that's the one. Conflict is important. Granted, we have characters that we have followed for years and years and years who are the protagonist that always succeeds. Anybody a James Bond fan? James Bond always succeeds. Why do we go back and keep watching him? Because we want to see how he succeeds, right? And especially if you look at the last few movies with Daniel Craig, there's much more of a humanistic side to Bond. We see a lot differently what his character is like. I haven't seen the last one yet. Don't spoil it for me, okay? But all of those movies have conflict in them. Think about Hogwarts. Hogwarts would be an awesome place to go for Harry Potter if there wasn't any conflict. If there's no conflict, there's no story for Harry, right? We have to have conflict. It is essential to making a great story emotionally resonant. All right, number 5. I promised the easy answer, it's life or death. But Kevin, you just used the example of a comedy movie, Liar, Liar. Guess what? Life or death doesn't mean literal death in this case. In that particular case, with that movie, Jim Carrey's character, Spencer, he's going to lose the relationship with his son completely. So it's a figurative death. But the all or nothing ending, life or death, is vital to this. If your stakes aren't high enough, guess where your book dies? Act 3, right before the climax. Because now your character is not going to make the next transition in the archetypes we're going to talk about in just a second. So understand that all or nothing ending is critical to what you're doing. Now, I guarantee there's at least a couple of people going, oh, does my story really do that? Guess what? It does. If you've done a good story, you'll be able to distill it down to this decision. Okay? Everybody tracking so far? Everybody's good? All right. Right on time. Sweet. All right. Let's talk some tricks and tropes of the trade. Now, these are genre agnostic. Okay? If you are writing thrillers, there are certain tropes you must do. If you're writing military science fiction like I do, there's certain tropes you must do. Understand. That's all part of the game. What we're going to talk about, though, are ones that are more reflected towards making your story resonant by looking at how your characters are developed and different things that you can actually do in the plot. Yes, I'm ruining all this for you. If you take one of my story structure classes, I will completely ruin you for movies because movies come down to actual timing. Like the fateful decision, the catalyst, or whatever you want to call it, always happens about 10, 12 minutes into the movie. My kids hate me. Just recently, we were watching a film, and my daughter, Gabby, who's my oldest one, she looks over and she goes, "Fateful decision." And I was like, yes. Okay. All right, so from the protagonist side, all right, the orphan. I bet right now we could very quickly name 10 orphans, main characters, in fiction, from books, movies, comic books, whatever you want to do. Ready? Let's do it. Call them out. Call them out. Harry Potter, Annie. Bruce Wayne. Say again. James Bond. We got Luke already. Harry Potter. We got Harry already. We got Annie. Peter Parker is another one. Heidi. You guys get the idea? Is this overdone at all? But here's the thing. Go back to my example from First Blood. John Rambo. He's not an orphan. He's an orphan by choice. He has decided he wants to be a loner. So you can actually be an orphan by making that choice. It doesn't have to be that you have lost a parent or two. By the way, the Hollywood definition of an orphan is loss of one parent. So if you've lost one parent, you're also an orphan. So now you can call in Katniss Everdeen and some others, for example, right? Say again? Yeah, Lion King, yeah. Doesn't have to necessarily be the literal orphan, all right? But yeah, this is completely overdone. Anybody write an orphan in their stories? We all do it. And it's perfectly okay. The idea is, though, again, you have to treat them the right way. All right? The chosen one. How many chosen ones do we know? Let's not go through this one because it's just an exhaustive list. All right? Most of the time when we see the chosen one, especially modern movies from like the 1980s forward, it's where they don't know that they're the chosen one or they don't believe it. Ding. Okay? Neo does not believe that he's a chosen one. And all these things happen, and Morpheus is always blowing up, hey, you're the chosen one. And then he goes to see the Oracle, and the Oracle's like, nope. But he's the chosen one. He's being protected, okay? Because he's a valuable commodity. But it also comes back from the Matrix perspective of, we need to develop his character because is Neo really a believer in all of this at the beginning of the movie? No, he's a skeptic. He's curious enough to follow the White Rabbit, but he's kind of a skeptic. So we have to see him not only identify his new role, but then be comfortable in that new role. And that's what we do. Also, you oftentimes see that someone is held back out of fear for their safety. Theirs or the world's. Ooh, it sounds scary, right? Everybody nod your heads yes and laugh, okay? The chosen one. Just like the orphan. Overdone. Can I do more things with the protagonist than that, though? Everybody nod your heads. Yes, we can. All right. Come on. There we go. Kick the dog. So think about this. Is Harry Potter the orphan? Yes. Is he the chosen one? Yes. How can I make this worse? I'm now going to kick the dog. I'm going to show you that not only is Harry an orphan, and we know that he's the subject of the book and the movie, right? So we know that great things are going to happen to this guy. but I'm going to put him in the worst possible location. Yes, your parents are dead. Now you're living with your in-law, with your aunt and uncle. It's an abusive relationship, and I'm sticking you in a closet under the stairs. Can I kick the dog any more than that? Only if Harry had a dog and I literally kicked it, okay? But you get the idea. I take that character and I put them in a miserable situation. Am I trying to garner your sympathy? Yes. Because who among us would like that? This is not a writing cave. This is your living quarters. I understand we all want a writing cave. I would deal with that, but okay. Exactly, and they starved him, okay? Understand with Kick the Dog, everything is in play. Everything in your character's life is in play. So the smallest details to the largest aspects, you have fair game if you do this. Okay? Because you're building that sympathy from the reader. Because when we first meet Harry, all we want is him to get the hell out of that, right? He's got our sympathy from page 1 almost, all right? Saving the cat, okay? There's more to Save the Cat than the book by Blake Snyder, okay? Blake Snyder actually talks about this particular movie. This is from the movie Sea of Love. So Sea of Love starts with, you see Al Pacino, he's got a Yankees hat, and it opens in a large room, and there's going to be a charity breakfast with the Yankees. There's all these men sitting at tables, and guys are passing out pancakes and doing all kinds of stuff, and one of the guys thinks that Al Pacino is, I just lost the name, one of the Yankees public address announcers. Any Yankees fans, you would know it. Rizzuto. There you go. Phil Rizzuto. And so there's a little bit of joking around, whatever else. And then Al Pacino comes up on stage and goes, "Hey guys, I'm very sorry. The Yankees can't come." And there's the, "Oh." He pulls out his badge and says, "But you all have outstanding warrants. You're under arrest." Wow. Police come. They clean out the room. They go outside. They're talking about how successful they were. And down the street comes running a guy with his little boy. And they get there. And where are the Yankees? Well, they had to leave. "Oh, we really want to see the Yankees. There's got to be another way." "No, I'm sorry. The Yankees had to leave." And they talk about what the guy's record is and everything else. And Pacino looks at the guy and he just kind of moves his jacket just a little bit and shows him his badge. The guy's eyes get wide and he takes a little boy and they walk away. And we think, man, that was cool. The guy's got a heart, right? But then Pacino does it one better. He looks at the guy and waves and says, "We'll catch you later." The first 5 minutes of the movie, we are completely endeared to this guy because he's a police officer. He's got heart. He's funny. We see all these great qualities about him even before the story takes off. So we already know him and we're pulling for him before we get to the next part of the movie. And Sea of Love is kind of a psychological thriller. It's pretty important to actually be rooting for this guy all along. So it's possible to be done. Your antagonist. The trick is being mean to old people, dogs, and children. We'll talk about the movie Tin Cup here in a second, but Stephen King's second book, The Dead Zone. We meet the antagonist. He's out walking. He's a door-to-door salesman. He kicks a dog to death. We immediately know he's the bad guy. Okay? So being mean to old people, dogs, and children. So in the movie Tin Cup, Kevin Costner on the right, his foil is Don Johnson. And one of Kevin's friends makes a comment about Don Johnson as his professional golfer. He's like, "Well, that guy, he's a sleazeball. He's mean to old people, children, and dogs." Totally lazy screenwriting joke, by the way. Okay, but screenwriters do this. And so later on, he comes out, Don Johnson's character comes out of an interview, walks down the stage, and there's an older couple standing there with their grandson, and the woman is holding a dog. And he's mean to all three of them at the same time. And if we already didn't figure out that he's a bad guy, we knew exactly right then and there, okay? But you will actually see this. Think about movies or books that you've read where somebody is mean to an elder, somebody's mean to a dog. Think about the U.S. troops at the end of Dances with Wolves when they come in and they shoot two socks. We want to root for the good guys, but they're the bad guys because they just killed the wolf, right? So old people killed the kids and dogs, all right? All of these make one thing happen, and this is growth. Again, Luke Skywalker cannot be the whiny farm boy from beginning to end. He has to grow and change over time. If he doesn't grow, if we don't see more into who he is, we are more apt to put that book down or to walk out of the theater. That's just the way this works. Now, there's a couple of ways that we can actually take that growth process and we can actually move them forward. One thing to do is when you're looking at starting your story, figure out, okay, if Luke Skywalker down there at the end of my movie is going to be the hero of the rebellion, I want to start him as far away as possible. So now he wants to go to the Imperial Flight Academy. He's a whiny farm boy, and he's stuck working on the moisture farm with his family, right? So I put him as far away as possible because the journey changes them. Notice, Luke does not change the journey. Luke has no impact on his journey. He is along for the ride because his growth is taking place in this wider universe that he had no clue of prior to meeting C-3PO and R2-D2. Now, we do this. Come on, back up. Hello. There we go. Nope, too far. All right, we do this with archetypes. How many of you are familiar with the term archetypes? Okay, this is from the book The Hero Within by Carol Pearson, which is in my references slide, so you don't have to write it down now. I'll show you the references in a second. Okay, very typical of a certain place or thing at a certain point in time. And you'll notice we've got 6 of them listed here. I have the orphan. Does that surprise anybody? It shouldn't by now. Okay, I have the wanderer, the warrior. I have the innocent, the martyr, and the magician. Now, the way you lay this out from a story structure perspective is, let's say that I'm over here as the orphan, right? And the orphan, I'm completely clueless about everything, so I'm very innocent as well, right? Everybody tracking? Orphan and innocent start at the same place. I move out of the orphan phase, and I get into wanderer, and this is where Luke Skywalker, again, goes with Obi-Wan and starts learning about things, and he starts acquiring new skills and new friends and whatever else, because he's wandering. He thinks he's ready to fight, but he's not. Remember that thing where he's fighting the little ball that shoots him in the butt? He's not ready to fight. We can see that. But we have to see him trying to make that happen. So he proceeds to lose his innocence through orphan and wanderer. Then we have the midpoint of the story where he actually the next step from wanderer into warrior. This happens because if you think about the movie, there's a very pivotal moment where, again, I've already said what it was. They're in the security shack. Luke and R2-D2 look up Princess Leia. She's there. They're going to go rescue her. And it's Luke's idea to put the handcuffs on Chewbacca. Think about that. It's Luke's idea. It's not Han, who you would think it would be because Han's the criminal, right? Here's the whiny farm boy saying, hey, I got this plan. We can totally deceive these inept Imperial guards with this. Everybody's okay with this, right? No, Chewbacca's like, no! Okay, but they figure it out and they go do it. He makes this transition. Now, being ready to fight doesn't mean that Luke is successful from here on out, right? No, they're chased by stormtroopers. He almost gets killed by the thing in the garbage pit and whatever else. Okay, he's making this transition. Now, at the end of his warrior phase, what ends up happening with most warrior phases is there's a significant loss or an emotional low point. That's a whole other class. Okay, just follow me with this. But then Luke then makes the transition to martyr. So from this point forward, when he starts figuring out that he's the fighter, right? He's making the trip to warrior. He starts becoming a magician. So he's lost his innocence. Now he's going to figure out the skills and whatever's necessary to get him to actually succeed at the end. Part of that is understanding that from a martyr perspective, he has to give up his life potentially to save Princess Leia. Because even though he rescued her off the Death Star, he's not done because the Death Star comes to them, right? So Luke has to do this. So he's made this transition to martyr because he's decided that, yes, to make this happen, I might have to give up my life. If he has not made that decision down there and he's still the whiny farm boy, we're all outside the theater complaining, this was the stupidest movie ever. You have to make that shift. So innocent to the midpoint, magician to the end. Now, is Luke a magician at the end like we talked about? No. He uses the Force though, right? Think about it. At the end of his warrior phase, Obi-Wan dies, and the first thing that happens is Luke is standing there, shots are being fired, and you hear this, run, Luke, run. He's like, what the hell? What was that? But that's that magician part. He starts understanding at that point, there's something very large here. And it goes back to the things that Obi-Wan was trying to talk to him, except for that meme where he shoots himself in the head with the lightsaber. Archetypes are important because if I structure these right, orphan to wanderer to warrior to martyr, with the loss of innocence and the gaining of magic, I have structured a story for you. I haven't used Save the Cat. I haven't used Hero's Journey. I haven't used a 7-point story structure. I haven't used Hollywood formula. I've used archetypes, what we are at certain parts of our life. Anybody an orphan here this week, here by yourself? Not know anybody? Ta-da! Congratulations today, after coming to this class, you have now graduated to the wanderer phase. Your job the rest of the day is to wander and meet people and introduce yourself to 5 more people so you start gaining those friends and gaining those skills because you're going to get back and you're going to become that warrior, the keyboard warrior. You're going to do what you need to do. And hopefully, as you make that transition, you'll go from I know Jack, you know what about publishing and writing to now I'm writing a book. That's what we want to do, right? We're all archetypes. You just didn't know it till now. All right? Here's our keys to emotions to wrap up. Again, character development. I don't care if you're a plotter or a pantser, it makes no difference to me. You have to design your characters. All right? And I'm not talking going through one of those workbooks that goes through things like, what's your character's favorite flavor of ice cream? I don't care. Do this with goals. Answer those 5 critical questions. Who are they? Why should the audience be rooting for them, right? What are they trying to do? Who is with them on that journey? Who's trying to stop them, and what happens if they fail? Focus on growth. If you do that from the archetypes perspective, you've already got the actions of your reader in mind. Your reader is expecting that try-fail process. As much as I want Justin to be successful on the screen, I want to see what happens when you fail. Because now, when you fail, I get a sense of character depth. I get a sense of, well, I might have failed, but I'm still the world's greatest hero because I've now learned to do this, right? I'm moving forward. I'm changing over time. I'm developing my character. That will get your reader hooked in. In my particular case, my dad didn't talk to me the first time because I killed a secondary character. A secondary character who had goals, and in the Four Horsemen universe, her species is reviled, but this one had honor, and she was a peacemaker. She was one of the marshals, and she was training a young human. And I'm writing that scene that night because I was totally going to kill off the young human. And I stopped. And I need to change this. It needs to be her. And I listened to myself. I deviated from my plan. I wrote that scene. And I'm bawling. I'm crying. It's like 10 o'clock at night. My wife and kids are upstairs. I'm So I finish the scene. I go to bed, and I'm laying there thinking, okay, that's got to suck. It's got to be the worst thing I've ever written. So I'm going to go the next morning. And so I go to Starbucks the next morning with the intent to edit the scene. And I'm sitting at that high top bar there at Starbucks by the baristas, and I'm bawling. And they're like, are you okay? So I'm a writer. I'm fine. And so the book comes out, and I get this text from Dad, and it was the character's name. I won't spoil it, and with the character's name with a question mark. And I'm like, yeah, I had to. It needed to happen. No response. So my dad's 81 at this point, so I call my dad, and he answers the phone. Hey, what's going on? He goes, I'm not speaking to you. Click. And I'm like, really? 4 days later, Dad calls. I think I'm over this. And then I did it to him again in a Murphy's Lawless book. So the whole idea is if you take into account those goals, that growth, all of those pieces of those characters, and think about your audience's reaction, especially if you have a reaction. If you're anybody write a scene and laugh at something funny that's happening, or anybody cry when you have something, you're there. You've learned half of the tricks of emotional resonance. The other part is goals, growth, and understanding that if I don't grow over time, that's when the audience throws my story out the window. All right? So we've got a couple seconds for questions. I'll ask questions. I'm going to go ahead. These are my references. My Story Can Beat Up Your Story is a screenwriting book, same as Save the Cat is. The Hero Within by Carol Pearson talks about the archetypes. And then if you haven't read On Writing by Stephen King, I highly recommend it. What's your question? How do I keep the protagonist in mind when I've got several secondary characters? A very long whip. Absolutely. So the question is, can I have multiple protagonists? Absolutely, you sure can. Provided you give them two things, goals and an antagonist that's diametrically opposed to what they do. You can do anything you want to do if you keep those two things in mind. Because again, if the character has nothing to do or has something that's seemingly easy to do, we don't care from a reader perspective. So if you do those two things, you'll be fine. Okay? Any other questions? I have 35 seconds left. Go. But if your villain has the same angle, but the needs are entirely opposed. So if my villain has the same angle, but it's totally opposed, he's still the villain. Yeah, as long as he is opposed in what the core values are, if you will, and what his goals are, totally opposite. That totally works. Chuck. Absolutely. Yeah, justification of that opposition. Okay. If you are interested, you can find me. This is a link to my website. I do courses every once in a while on character development and story structure, so you're more than welcome to come and take a picture of this. This will take you to a web page where there's information about the courses I have upcoming. I am around all week. I have an off day completely tomorrow, so I'd love to meet you, talk to you. If you want to hit me on Facebook or whatever, please feel free to. Thank you for coming. Todd, do you have a question real quick? Like 10 seconds. No. Okay, anyway, thank you all very much for coming today.